Under the night sky, twinkling with stars, the Runcandel family's flag fluttered in the wind. Mary, lazily resting her head on her arm, mumbled, "Another sudden summons?" She turned her curious gaze towards her brother standing thoughtfully nearby. "Brother Diffus, do you know what's going on? I've asked Sister Luna, but it seems she doesn't know either. I'm still busy with those mages." Diffus, with a calm demeanor, crossed his arms in contemplation. "The Tona twins aren't leaving Stormcastle until next year, so I don't think it's about them. Don't you think Father is coming to see our youngest sibling?" "Our youngest?" Mary asked in surprise. "Why?" "Have you forgotten? The boy chose the Founder's sword during the selection ceremony," Diffus reminded her with an unreadable smile. Memories rushed back, startling Mary, and she exclaimed, "Ah, that's right, he did that. But is that reason alone enough for Father to return?" Diffus looked up towards the colossal, majestic figure vaguely appearing in midair, his voice deepening. "Well, how can we know what Father is thinking?" Just then, a cold and sharp voice rang out, cutting across their conversation. "Mary, Diffus." Called by name, Mary startled and turned, hastily responding to her eldest sister who had just appeared. "Ah, I'm sorry, sister."
In the quiet confines of the garden, Mary Runcandel stood in contemplation, her sharp eyes gleaming with doubt. "Father came back personally just to see him?" she muttered to herself. "Is that boy truly that useful?" Meanwhile, in a luxurious room within the mansion, Gilly reported the news while trying to maintain composure. "The Patriarch is coming to see us. Perhaps he just intends to visit his children, young master." "Perhaps," Jin replied vaguely, but in his mind, everything had become clear. Khan must have told Father everything. Gilly gently requested, "Young master, could you turn around for a moment?" and began to comb his hair. Meanwhile, Jin continued his train of thought, analyzing the situation lucidly. Khan is inherently slow, so he wouldn't confirm to Father that I used magic. He probably just reported exactly what he saw. A youngest son using a power that is neither magic nor aura. Father returned to investigate what that power is. Jin's eyes suddenly darkened, becoming deeper and more resolute than ever as he confronted the harsh truth. He wants to see if that power, or I, myself, am useful or not.
The enormous, heavy stone gate began to creak open, revealing a magnificent space within. Along the grand hall, 2 rows of knights in gleaming armor stood solemnly, their swords raised high, forming an imposing honor guard. As the figure of power stepped in, they uniformly chanted, their voices shaking the space. "We, your humble servants, present ourselves to the Patriarch." The Patriarch, a man with white hair and an authoritative demeanor, strode across a carpet with glowing mystical blue patterns. His face was stern, exuding an overwhelming aura. He paused, his sharp gaze sweeping across the grand hall. His deep, commanding voice resounded, carrying an undeniable order. "Bring the Tona twins here. Haytona, Daytona." Before the high steps, 2 small figures, Daytona with black hair and Haytona with white hair, stood with bowed heads. Both replied in unison with utmost reverence, "Yes, Father."
In the solemn hall, under the mystical blue light, Daytona and Haytona stood with bowed heads before their powerful father. The voice of the Runcandel family head rang out, cold and pressing. "I heard you had an altercation with Jin. What was your fault in that?" Both boys stared blankly at each other, cold sweat beading on their foreheads. Haytona was the first to regain composure, raising his head and firmly replying, "We are not at fault." Daytona immediately chimed in, his voice slightly trembling as he recalled the fight. "Jin was the one who injured us. Right, with an unknown power. It wasn't aura, it was like magic." Hearing the 2 words magic, one of the family head's eyes twitched slightly. Noticing his father's reaction, Daytona became more enthusiastic. "That's right, magic is a forbidden art in our family." He and Haytona exchanged glances, a sly smile on their faces, believing they had secured victory. "That's right, Father. If Jin used magic, we should interrogate him before he can dispose of the evidence." "Stop." The family head's single word echoed, cutting them off and plunging the room into silence. He turned his back, his tall figure casting a long shadow down the steps, exuding an overwhelming aura. "My sons," his voice deep and resounding through the space, "engrave this in your hearts. At this rate, you won't be able to survive in the Runcandel family." His knife-sharp gaze swept over his 2 trembling sons. The complacency on their faces vanished, replaced by extreme horror and fear. The family head spoke his command, his voice as cold as a final verdict. "Go bring Jin here."
My father, Chiron Runcandel. Among the other children, Jin silently observed, his mind deep in thoughts about that man. He was the strongest, yet also the coldest person I had ever known. He was an entity who had transcended the limits of mortals, bearing the era's greatest title, Origin Knight, the pinnacle of a demigod. His aura was brilliant and overwhelming, yet his figure was majestic and cold, his hand gripping the greatsword as if it were a part of himself. Jin recalled, there was a time when he was no different from an ordinary person, but after reaching the realm of an Origin Knight, he lost nearly all human emotions. He became an existence obsessed only with the clan and its development. Under the banner bearing the clan's symbol, everything else became meaningless. In the majestic hall, under the distant gaze of his father seated on the throne, a son untalented in swordsmanship like Jin was treated as nothing but an unknown. Memories of powerlessness and fear caused a cold drop of sweat to trickle down his temple. But then, the shadow of the past faded. This time is different. An iron will surged within him. In this life, Jin's eyes burst open, blazing with a brilliant azure light, imbued with an unyielding determination.
In the cold air, Jin Runcandel's mind ignited a steely vow. No one would ever look down on him again. That promise resonated in stark contrast to the image of the small, solitary boy standing there, dwarfed by the vast space. Before him stood a colossal door, as towering as a fortress wall, revealing only a thin sliver of light. With all his might, Jin pushed open the heavy doors, exposing the immense and solemn grand hall within. The dazzling light made him squint, but his steps did not hesitate as he advanced. The air in the hall was thick with tension. Eyes from both sides, sharp and scrutinizing, converged on him. A few people whispered softly, their murmurs filled with ridicule and curiosity, echoing in the near-absolute silence. Ignoring it all, Jin strode steadily forward, the sound of his shoes echoing rhythmically on the polished marble floor. He headed straight ahead, where at the end of the path sat a powerful throne atop high steps. Stopping before the steps, he looked up at the man seated on the throne, a figure exuding the aura of an absolute ruler. With a decisive gesture, Jin bowed deeply, his young but firm voice ringing clear in the silent space. "I pay my respects to the clan head."
In the solemn space, where a mystical blue light shone, Chiron Runcandel looked directly at Jin, questioning him with a deep, authoritative voice. "Why do you call me clan head and not father?" Facing his father's overwhelming aura, Jin looked up, his clear eyes devoid of fear. The boy calmly explained, "My siblings, and even the Guardian Knights, over 100 clan members visited today. Therefore, I concluded that your visit was official, and that's why I chose that form of address." The unexpectedly articulate and mature answer surprised Luna, who stood beside them. Chiron subtly smirked, a flicker of satisfaction in his eyes. A satisfactory answer. "Thank you, clan head," Jin respectfully replied. Chiron stood tall, his hand resting lightly on the hilt of his family-crested sword. "I came to the castle today for another reason, so for now, call me father. Then I will ask you the same question I asked your brothers." The atmosphere suddenly tensed. Chiron's gaze grew cold, his voice sharpened, enunciating each word. "In your brawl, what mistakes did your brothers make?" Jin froze, hesitating. His small hand clenched into a fist, knuckles white. A dark and powerful aura suddenly surged around his body. Snapping his head up, Jin's eyes blazed with a fire of resentment and determination. He ground out a single word, the sound echoing in the deathly silence. "Revenge."
In the solemn space, Jin declared loudly, "If you are a Runcandel, you must always return what you have received, be it favor or enmity." Hearing her younger brother's firm declaration, Mary couldn't help but be amused. A cunning and excited smile appeared on her face, her eyes gleaming with curiosity. Chiron, the head of the family, was silent for a moment, his face revealing no emotion. Suddenly, his authoritative voice echoed throughout the great hall. "Everyone, except for the youngest child, leave this place." The sudden command stunned everyone present. Jin remained kneeling in the vast hall, surrounded by his siblings and the family's loyal guardians, all bearing bewildered expressions. Whispers began to rise from the crowd. Has the youngest passed the Patriarch's test? Seeing everyone still hesitant, Mary sternly yelled, "What are you standing around for? This is the Patriarch's command." Hearing this, the others immediately obeyed. Yes, we shall comply with your command. One by one, people began to leave the Great Hall, leaving Jin alone to face his formidable father. The vast space now held only the father and son, preparing for a private conversation destined to unfold.
From behind the door, Mary wore a mischievous smile, her amber eyes gleaming with amusement as she looked at her father. This kid, he's not bad, is he? She thought to herself. Bang! The heavy door slammed shut, trapping Jin Runcandel in the vast room with only 2 people remaining. Before him, Chiron's imposing figure stood like an unmovable mountain, his aura making the air around him thick. I dismissed everyone because there are a few things I want to ask you privately. The Tona brothers reported that you used a special kind of power. Our Runcandel clan strictly forbids the use of magic because anyone who practices magic cannot reach the pinnacle of swordsmanship. Now answer me, what was the power you used? If it was magic, I will not let this slide easily. The invisible pressure from Chiron weighed heavily on Jin's shoulders, but he showed no fear. The boy raised his head, his gaze firm as he met his father's eyes, a slight, meaningful smile playing on his lips. Father, that was...
Jin was certain that as soon as his father learned of this power, he would never be able to ignore it, for this was the power of Solderit, a great entity hidden in the shadows enveloped by mystical blue energy currents. Standing before his father, Jin calmly extended his hand. From the void, currents of energy as black as Chinese ink began to gather, swirling around his fingers. I'm not sure myself, Jin began, his voice clear in the silent space. I can't distinguish if it's magic or aura, so I wondered what to call it. If you don't mind. As he spoke, the mass of energy in his hand grew larger and larger, flaring into a chaotic yet perfectly controlled sphere where blue light and pure darkness intertwined. Jin looked up, a confident and somewhat challenging smile gracing his lips. Perhaps you can help me name it. Chiron froze, his sharp eyes slightly narrowed. Undisguised astonishment flickered across his usually calm face. This!
In an ethereal space tinged with a mystical blue, a majestic figure appeared, towering like an ancient deity. He stood there, silent and authoritative, enveloping Jin with an aura both overwhelming and protective. In front, Jin looked up, his azure eyes glowing unusually bright, reflecting the surging energy swirling around him. Unlike his usual look of bewilderment, a subtle smile graced his lips, a smile of understanding and acceptance. In his small hands, an orb of energy swirled, a fierce fusion of profound darkness and pure blue light, radiating a terrifying primordial power. Amidst the almost absolute stillness, Chiron's deep voice resonated, not just in the space, but seemingly echoing directly into Jin's mind, carrying the weight of an entire clan. This is the power of the Runcandel clan's progenitor.